Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ayomide Adebayo. I'm a graphics designer with Futuresoft, and I'm using this opportunity to welcome you to another session of our Launch and Learn. Launch and Learn is a training program we always hold at Futuresoft, and it takes place once every 2 weeks. So for today's session, we shall be talking about 10 reasons why branding is important for your business. And I want you to follow along as we go through this presentation. Thank you. So first things first. Okay, first things first, I want to do a quick breakdown of what I'll be talking about. So my outline goes like this. I'll be having a little backstory. I'm going to give a historical perspective about how branding came about. Then I would go on to what brand really is. Then I would do a breakdown. I'll mention the 10 reasons why branding is important for your business. Then I would draw out my conclusion. So this is a quote by Seth Godin. And it says, a brand is a set of expectations, memories, stories, and relationships. When taken together, account for a consumer's decision to choose one product or service over another. So I want to do a little backstory into how branding all began, to give a background, historical perspective of how branding began. So branding itself actually goes a long way back, and branding itself as an art has evolved over the years, and it has almost become a part of us. I can like even before we even showed up here today, we might have come across different brands, you might have interacted with a lot of products, and that shows you how long branding has actually been. It's actually been way back. It's as old as human civilization. And even in subsequent slides, I'm going to do a rundown of the history of what branding really is. Okay, so branding began way back in the 1500s, and it means to burn. It was actually taken from a Scandinavian language, and it actually means a burning piece of wood used to make an identification on their cattle back then. So now, what we have on the screen is actually an image of cattle brands way back then. This is an image of an ancient cattle brand via the Texas State Historical Association. So then branding was actually simple, distinctive, and instantly identifiable. And those three things are the true pillars of any great brand. So even as way back then, branding were this simple. They were basically for the means of identification. Though farmers always use it then, they always use it for identification to separate cattle that belong to a particular others. So next, there was the Industrial Revolution. So the Industrial Revolution ran between the 1750s to the 1870s. Okay, during the Industrial Revolution, we saw the introduction of energy. There was an increased efficiency in the workplace. Human being learned how to do things better, and all these improved products that were being produced, and more products also brought about more choices for consumers. So because there were more choices for consumers, companies needed something that was going to distinct them from other competitors. So there was the need to stand out. There was the need to take ownership as a company. There was a need to take ownership as business owners, and that was the major highlight of that era. So now going straight into the 1870s to the 1920s. This was the era of invention. So then we began to see transformations here and there, which this was like more like an improvement. Last era, which was the industrial revolution. So there was inventions, and it was within this era, iconic companies began to spring up. Companies like, we have the Coca-Colas of this world, a notable player in the food and drink business. We had Colgate, we had Ford Motors, we had Chanel, and so many. So now, in the 1920s to the 1950s, now production had become more efficient, and the next step was to having to attention of consumers, and it's also of radio jingles. There was targeted messaging, and okay, targeted messaging here means that prepare specific content for specific group of people, not just general content, and each of those content that was prepared had a specific target in mind. So those were the highlights for era 1920s to 1950s. Then in the 1950s to 1960s, we had the birth of modern branding, and it was when there was the advent of the billboard, there were the double signs, product packaging, and all of that. Now, there was a shift here. Branding went from being informational to intimate. Okay, permit me to go back a bit. Okay, during the era of invention, there was actually a boom in the print industry, and most brands, they focused on dishing out information, telling people about their products, how to use it, and all of that. But during the 1950s to the 1960s, branding went from being informational to intimate. Brands now found ways to connect with their customers, with their consumers on a very personal level. So this was one of the key highlights, and this was one of the things that battered modern branding. So along the line, to evolve, okay, the next era then was from the 1960s to the 1990s. Okay, then the popular Walmart is a store worldwide brand. They rebranded, and that they needed to stay relevant. Several companies along the line too, they began to rebrand, and they began to expand some of their service offerings too. And due to the fact that civilization was coming up, brands too had to evolve alongside. So now, in the late 2000s, 20th century till today, it is important to know that we now have more options than we used to. Now, the competition now is more fiercer than what we used to have before. So now the question is, how can we make people like us enough? I mean us now, like businesses, how can we make people like our brand enough to buy from us instead of our competitors? So that's the question today. So what is really branding? What is really branding? The next slide. So can you see the logo on the screen? This is the Benz logo. So there is a feeling you get after using this particular product. Okay, let's say I'm a car owner and I drive a Benz. There's a feeling I get from using that particular product. That gut feeling is what the brand is. So the brand actually is not the logo itself. It's actually the feeling I get after using the particular product, after using a particular service. So that's what the branding really is. So branding is a way companies look to connect with customers. Now, the last scenario I painted, branding goes beyond using an actual product. It actually is an intimate feeling. Branding also can be so personal. People want to have connection. They want to feel this connection with products that they use. And then when this connection is a good feeling, they would tend to patronize, they will tend to come back for more. They will tend to come back to use such products. So this is what Alena Wheeler from her book, Designing Brand Identity, was trying. The way companies look to connect with customers, become irreplaceable, and create lifelong relationships. Now, so we have two of the most popular soda brands in the world. So 26 years this year, and we would see that it has become almost an iconic brand, and it has become like a lifestyle for many of us. It's even I even know some people that cannot do without taking Coca-Cola in a day. So like I said, branding is beyond the products. Is that gut feeling, that satisfaction we get after using such products. It is beyond the logo. We could see that in the last slide. It's beyond the logo, and it's beyond the brand identity. So branding is everything tangible and intangible that comes from the experience your customers have when they come in contact with your business. So now, the way branding, there are some key aspects of your brand, and they are listed. We have the visual identity, we have voice, promise, value, targeting, and positioning. So now we have visual identity. Now, in branding, we can't do without branding without talking about visual identity, because the way humans are wired, we are actually driven by what we see. And even in our choice of using certain products, we are just really attracted to the visual appeal we get from certain products. Sometimes it can even be the adverts, sometimes it might even be their colors and all of that. So that is why your visual identity is an important aspect of branding. So like I said here, your visual identity is the imagery and graphical information that expresses who a brand is and differentiates it from all others. So in other words, it describes everything your customer can see, like I said, even from the colors used, your kind of piece, the logos, and all of that. So that's what your visual identity is all about. Now, your voice talks about your brand style of communication. So now, over time, due to the advent of technology, businesses employ several channels to reach out to their target audience and target customer and target consumers. So our style of your style of communication is who your brand voice is. So now, as a business, you must try to stand out from the pack. You must try to be significant. You must leave that lasting impression in the mind of your audience. So basically, your voice is the style of communication for your brand. The next thing we talk about the brand promise and image of Coca-Cola. And now, promise is feeling that value your customer would get whenever he interacts. So now, the more a company can deliver on that promise, the more trust is built in the mind of the consumer, then the stronger the value of that brand becomes. So now, take for instance, this is Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is a brand. Now, their promise is to refresh the world, to inspire moments of optimism and upliftment, to create value and make a difference. So, like I said, a promise is that value, that experience. Whenever people come in contact with your product, that feeling, that promise, that value, that experience, people will receive every time they interact with your product. So now let's go to the next aspect. That's the values. So your brand values they're like a set of guiding principles. They shape out every aspect of your business. They are the core of your very brand. They are what your brand is all about. So at every touch point, okay, now a touch point is the channels through which people get to interact with your brand. So these brand values, they must remain the same at every touch point. They detect your brand message, they detect your identity, they detect your personality. So then we have targeting. Targeting defines the segment of your customers based on their unique characteristics and focuses solely on serving them. So, and instead of trying to reach an entire market, a brand uses target marketing to put their energy into connecting a defined group of people within that market. So another key aspect of your brand is your positioning. So positioning refers to that space your business owns in the mind of your consumer. And that space is what sets you apart from your other competitors. So now, this is the core of my presentation. So we're going to try to break down 10 reasons why branding is important. So let's get into it. So now, for the purpose of my presentation, I'll be using a share Coke campaign that was done in 2011 by Coca-Cola. Okay, Coca-Cola is one of the most iconic brands. They've been in business for long, and they've even tried to stay afloat all through the years. And one of their products is Coke, and they began a campaign then where they involved changing the traditional wrapping. Like this was not the actual wrapping. This was not the actual wrapping that Coke used with most of their products, but they were looking for a special way to this connection with their customers, and then they introduced the Share Coke campaign. So the way the campaign works, there is the wrapping around the Coca-Cola bottle, and it has the saying "Share Coke with." Then you include the popular name. So now going back to what I said earlier, I said something about brand promise and all of that. Now, the purpose of this campaign was to create a more personal relation with their consumers and inspire shared of happiness. So that is one thing about iconic brands. They tend to create that special connection with their customers, and that was what Coke was trying to achieve. So now, everything we know about every product we use is because of branding. I've clearly seen, the 6 aspects of branding we mentioned. They said branding is also the link that connects the company to the customer and vice versa. So branding is like that middle ground, is like that bridge that links the company to the customer. So branding is a must for every business, and here are 10 reasons why branding is important to your company. So your assets, what you present is key to your business, and the what is just as much as sales. Good branding will keep your business afloat even in trying times. Now, okay, this point is trying to say that aspect of your business, like the sales aspect, like the revenue aspect of your business, your brand is actually a key part of your business. And focusing on your brand can help you stay afloat even in trying times. Branding sends a clear message to your customer. Earlier in this presentation, I said something about due to the world we are in, and most businesses are looking for channels, means to reach out to their customers, the digital space, social media, and all of that. So brand links your name, your logos, your values, your messaging together with the product you are putting out there together. So branding, your branding here must be uniform. It must align across all these various platforms. It must align across all these various channels. So it also goes ahead to say that the cohesive communication of all aspects of your brand creates the appeal that to your target audience. So now, every touch point a customer or potential customer has with your product or company will shape their view of the brand. So now, earlier I spoke about touch points. I said touch points are points through which your customers get to interact with your product. And I said something earlier when I was referring to the key aspects of your brand. I said something that the message must remain the same at these touch points. So it must send the same message, it must send the same feel all through. So branding builds perception. So now, looking at the two previous points I just mentioned, I talked about a clear message to customers. So when the message that is being passed across by a particular brand, by a particular business is being consistent, there is this view that is being formed in the heart of the customer. Okay, now let's take a look at the Share Coke campaign I spoke about. Now, with that campaign alone, okay, now with that campaign alone, Coke was able to connect with their customers on a very intimate level. And in a way, millions of individuals will not really forget that campaign easily. And eventually, people would tend to take Coca-Cola more serious as a brand, and people would even include it as a part of their daily lifestyle, as a part of drinks they take on a daily basis. So this is what branding does. Branding shapes the mind of a customer. When the message is clear, that you are not just a customer, really important to us, a perception is formed in the mind of the individual. And eventually, you will discover that such customers like that, they even become evangelists for such products. So after perception is formed, you see that trust will be built. It's just a matter of time before trust will be built. So this is one of the reasons why you must also pay attention to branding as a business. It builds trust. As customers get in touch with your business, and so far as the experience they're getting from your product is maintained, that level of excellence is maintained, communication also is maintained. They will always keep coming back. They will always see you as that trusted brand. So branding, when it is properly done, it builds trust. So now I have before you, there's this image of Coca-Cola. And like I've said, Coca-Cola is an iconic brand. They've exemplified brand loyalty over the years, and they have remained afloat despite changes, the economic downturns, changing consumption patterns. And there's this beautiful thing about the brand Coca-Cola. In spite of they are this brand that they love to evolve. And okay, while going through some materials online for this presentation, I discovered that Coca-Cola, they created a particular product that was the Zero Coke when there was concerns over healthy eating habits and drinking habits. So I'm making this point just to let you know that Coca-Cola, they are this kind of brand that have this special connection with customers, and they are these resilient kind of brand. They have evolved over the years. So brand creates customer loyalty. Like I've said, when there's a clear message, a perception is formed, trust will come naturally. Then after trust, you would have loyal customers for your business. And this loyalty will be seen that customers will even be brand evangelists. They would tell people about this particular product I just used. You should try it out. That is what good branding does. Good branding would create customer loyalty. Loyal customers will not only engage your brand, they will become brand evangelists and introduce your brand. So brand gives you preference. So people are more attached to businesses with strong brands than ones without. Good brands lasting impacts on their target audience. So branding expands your reach as a business, and your message about religious followership for your brand. Some of the greatest brands have broken into new markets because of powerful messaging. Now, to further push this point home further, an example is this Heineken. So Heineken is a strong collaborator with. Okay, is a strong player, is a strong collaborator with UEFA, and as we all know, UEFA is they hold a football competition every other season, and the fact that Heineken is a strong collaborator with UEFA, they have broken into new markets, and I'm very sure that their reach has expanded over time. So this is what does. This is what good branding does. It can expand your reach as a business. Another example is Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is even all over the world. Its reach is in many countries, and this is how great brands. This is how they stand out. So branding builds equity. So branding is a statement that you will deliver on your promises and claim. So now I said something earlier. I said something earlier about trust, and branding will get you trusted customers, would put you in the heart of consumers. And branding also is you putting yourself out there that you would also deliver on your promises and claim. So businesses that live up to this standard they have set for themselves tend to gain lifelong equity among their target audience. So now we see that building brand equity itself is not something that is achieved in a day. Now, we've talked about several reasons why branding is important. We've talked about a brand being an asset. We've talked about a clear message. We've talked about building trust and loyalty. When all these things are properly done, a business is going to reach equity, and equity now goes beyond an individual. It now begins to spread into places. You begin to see businesses dominating a particular sector. It begins to spread into places, and brand equity goes individual, like I've said. And equity is the highest point a brand can reach. And when a brand reaches this equity, it's going to show in the revenue, profit, and it's going to even improve sales and revenue of the business. So everything is all tied together. Everything is all tied to good. So now, after brand equity has been reached, branding gives you protection. Now, branding protects you from competitors. That is where you get to stand out from your competitors. Without it, they will have no problem making copy of what made you popular and claim it for themselves. Excuse me. They can carry the same or similar products, but they won't be able to take your style and originality away. Good branding will establish you as an industry leader in your own field, and this gives you this height above the rest of other competitors, and it gives you this safe space, and that's what good branding does. When good branding eventually becomes a source of revenue, branding will create sales and revenue for your business. A good brand strategy would directly impact your bottom line. And as customers of your brand, the resulting impact will determine if you will make more sales, which will in turn generate more revenue. So this is simple. As customers interact with your brand, the experience they get from using a particular product, from using your product, so far as is good, so far as they feel connected, so far as the brand strategy is properly done, to the latter, there will be more sales, and which will in turn generate more revenue. So now, point. Let's take a look at the business value of. So Interbrand, they make of the top 100 brands in the world by valuation. Of 2021, the world topmost brands aggregated a value of over 2 billion. And according to the last list that was released in 2021, Apple still remains one of the most valuable brands, followed by Amazon. And we can see how branding affects the value of your business. Now, as I round up this session, I have these final words to say. A strong brand stands out in a crowded marketplace. People will always fall in love with brands and trust them and believe in their superiority. For you to remain relevant, branding is something you must take serious. For you to be placeable in the marketplace, for you to remain iconic, and for you to scale up your business in the long run, branding is a must. Thank you. I don't know if any of us has questions you would like to ask.
The question is, what if the messaging of a brand is interpreted? Is there a way branding can help to restructure that and set the brand on the right path.
It is why brand and strategies is important. And if you could remember, I said something that your voice of communication is one of the key aspects of a brand. And in the brand strategy document, the aspect of messaging can always be revisited, and the messaging just has to be clear as possible, and it has to be compelling enough, and customers have to see what you are offering as a company. They have to see what you're offering as a business. They have to see your promises, the values, the experiences one would get every other time one interacts with that particular brand. Yeah, I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, hi Ayo. For me, it's really not much of a question. So, but I think the area that I actually locked in, it's the angle we talked about the value of branding and the valuation or the importance, the monetary value of branding. And I think that was one aspect that actually caught my attention, and in which I feel it makes a whole lot of sense that such data is being put out, because a lot of times people don't often pay attention to the fact that this actually has impact on the market. And you mentioning this, I've actually read the article released by Interbrand, and I realized that the analysis being made on that note was actually being verified by NASDAQ, the analysis in terms of how they correlate the branding of these organizations and the impact on your finances. And it's actually a good one that you're bringing it up in terms of how brand impacts an organization in general. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because I've heard like a lot of brands say they want to rebrand, and for them, what they do, they just change probably their logo, their color, or just something about like the visuals. And then from your presentation now, I've come to understand that branding is way beyond like logos and colors and just what people see. So what role does like the visuals play in terms of like a brand's overall branding? Why should clients be doing one, or which should they be focusing on more than the other, or is it like a package deal?
Thank you, Onye. Okay, so if I could get your question right, so branding itself is okay for a rebrand to be done. A rebrand should be done holistically, like the visual identity aspect is just one part of what your brand is. Now, the brand voice, the promise, the targeting, positioning, and all other aspects are meant to be revisited, proper rebrand. So now, the visual identity is important because it is like a means of identification. Okay, now, looking at some popular brands now, when you see a certain color, there is this memory that comes to your mind. It means that color, that particular color is associated with that particular brand. And okay, now, permit me to use this example, MTN now. When you see the yellow, when you see the MTN yellow on the billboard, you don't even have to look so far, look for their logos or something. You are almost so certain that this advertisement has to do with MTN. And that is what a good brand, that is what it does. That is the importance of a good visual identity. It serves the purpose of identification, and that's just it, Major.
Thank you for the session.
Okay.
Yes, I wanted to say what Oye said, that from your explanation, it made us realize that branding is more than logo, it's more than your stationaries, it's more than the icon behind your logo, right? There are a lot of things brand has to put in place to strategically place themselves brand-wise. Thank you for the session. It was really impactful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the session. Mine is a contribution. It's my own observation from my own company as well. I'm the founder at Noji Art. I'm thinking that if one wants to rebrand it, as you said, it's more than the logo and the colors. I think it's a combination of logo, colors, the voice of the brand, and so on. And I would go so far as to say that a brand we have to think of it as a person, and it has a character. So you might have a friend who always wears large looped earrings and always has a scarf either on their neck or tied on their bag or whatever it is. They have a character. The person is, I don't know, outgoing, friendly, maybe sassy, something like that. So I think that branding in a holistic manner involves the character of the brand. And we have to think of the character of the brand rather like a personality, like a person. This is my contribution. Thank you.
So I would like to say thank you to everyone that attended. Thank you to everyone that took out the time to join us on the session, ask questions, made a comment. Really appreciate that. We're going to be closing the session now. Join us in 2 weeks' time for another edition of the Lunch and Learn. I will be so excited to see you. And the replay would be available to everyone. It will be on our social media channels. Please watch out for that. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I've enjoyed the rest of the day.